Hi, everyone. Welcome today to a webinar entitled Unlocking the Power of MOSA, Practical Insights from the SOSA and FACE Consortia. My name is Laura Murphy, and I'm with the National Technology Alliance, and I'm so excited that you made it here today. So along with me, I'd like to welcome Judy Cerenzia. She's the Vice President of Forum Operations at the Open Group, and today she's going to speak with us about the practical implementation of MOSA and its transformative impact across defense and non-defense applications. So she's going to unpack a bit about SOSA, which is Sensor Open Systems Architecture, and FACE, which is the Future Airborne Capability Environment Consortia, and talk a lot about interoperability, scalability, and how all of those things sort of work together to create, seamless cross-platform integration in defense systems and power innovation for all of us in commercial and industrial sectors as well. So excited for all that she has to share. Just a couple of ground rules. I want to let you know everyone will remain on mute through the session, but if you have questions, we'd love you to add those to the questions panel on your GoToWebinar screen. So feel free to shoot those in at any time. And at the end of her presentation, Judy will take some questions that I will moderate for her from the audience. So thank you, Judy, for being here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you, Laura. Can you hear me all right? Sound check?
Yes, you sound great.
Very good,
Thanks.
very good. So thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today. As Laura said, I'm Judy Cerenzia, VP of Forum Operations at the Open Group, and delighted to be here to tell you more about who we are, what we do, and why it matters in the realm of MOSA, in the realm of DoD, and other industry sectors where standards are in the mix of enabling folks to achieve their business objectives. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Open Group mission and how it aligns with the definition of MOSA. And then I'll step through the evolution of several ecosystems that are currently evolving at the Open Group. The success story of the FACE Consortium, the success story of the SOSA Consortium, our Open Process Automation Forum, and some other emerging ecosystems that are following MOSA and meeting the principles and tenets of MOSA itself. And then I'll talk a little bit about enterprise architecture and how that ties everything together. It's been a key tenet and played a key role in a lot of our open standards development. We do have an open standard at the Open Group for specifically enterprise architecture, architecture development methodology. And we've put that into practice in the SOSA Consortium, the FACE Consortium, and several others that you'll hear about today. It's just an underpinning need to have an architectural component when you're putting a business strategy and a technology technology standard in place to change the way that an industry sector does business. So I mentioned making standards work. It's our proven methodology that enables industry sectors to initiate new standards activities within the Open Group to meet business objectives and achieve success in their given market. Through our various forums and consortia, we are leading the development of open, vendor-neutral technology standards and certifications. We do that by being able to provide a legal governance structure that allows competitors to collaborate while avoiding antitrust issues and avoiding spillage of IP to the point where a member organization is not allowed to take what they hear in the legal umbrella discussions of a consortium or forum and have that technology capability that was shared to be included in a standard show up in their product line 6 months later. So we put the legal protection in place to prevent that. We have a standards process that we use that enables fairness, consensus, one vote per organization, so that we have an equal playing field between the large organizations and small businesses who sometimes are only 1 or 2 people per organization. Every organization at the table gets a vote. Every organization at the table has a voice. We have customers, suppliers, the full supply chain represented in the room when we are developing standards. And we have a very deterministic process that assures that We have a fair, open, vendor neutral, technology neutral, no barriers to adoption or barriers to being able to use a technical standard that comes out of the open group and is published. Okay. We also offer certification programs that augment the standards that are published. That gives pedigree to products that are developed that meet requirements to standards. Instead of a vendor saying, yes, I meet the requirements, you can trust me, there is some legal backing that certification provides to ensure, like I said, that there is some pedigree and some trust in the marketplace that the product actually does meet the requirements as stated. And then we go through this process again with market adoption as other standards emerge, other technology capabilities emerge. This flywheel is not static. It's not go through the cycle once and you're done. There are continuing efforts within all of the forums and consortia that we have that we continue to utilize. We also collaborate with other consortia and standards bodies. We have a mantra of reuse, don't reinvent. If there are standards out there that are fit for purpose, we adopt them or adapt them to be fit for purpose, and only create new requirements when there are not standards out in a marketplace or in a industry sector that exist. But we have the capability to merge those into a technology standard for each of our forums and consortia. Okay, you should be familiar with the MOSA principles, the 5 principles for establishing an enabling environment, employing a modular design, designating key interfaces, using open standards, and certifying conformance. But the end result of applying these principles results in benefits to both customers and suppliers. There's enhanced competition in the marketplace when you have open standards that designate key interfaces that lead to modularity and portability. Facilitates technology research because the integration cycle is reduced. Increases innovation. We have key interfaces that bound where data and information flow into a product, but no one sees what capability is inside that black box. So if there's something innovative or new that's being developed, it can still meet the interfaces and improve system capability or software capability. There's opportunity for that. And potential cost savings, again, due to reuse, reduced integration time, and increased interoperability, which ultimately gets capability to our warfighters faster and our operational systems out in the commercial world. They can do technology refresh much faster if there's a standardized approach, and capability can be reused and repurposed. I like this slide. It gives a little bit more in-depth information about what a modular open systems approach means. It does consist of both a business component and a technical component, and it aligns nicely with what we do at the Open Group when we look at achieving business objectives through the use of open standards. So contract language and intellectual property policies come out of business guides that forums and consortia develop. The technical aspect focusing on modularity and an open system architecture is where our technical standard development comes in. And the open system architecture APIs are what are subject to conformance certification. The open system architectures are also represented by several of the enabling consensus-based standards that are recognized in the marketplace. 2 of them are the FACE and SOSA technical standards, and they support interoperability, portability, scalability, and they're equally available to the public under fair and reasonable license terms. In this case, they're free to download off of the Open Group library site. So the MOSA definition of, let me get down here a little bit, an integrated business and technical strategy to achieve competitive and affordable. I lost my place here. Anyway, it does align very well with the Open Group vision of making standards work, which also focuses on enabling government and industry sectors to initiate new standards and activities that meet business objectives and enduring success in a given market. I'm going to focus now on the evolution of ecosystems. And the first ecosystem that was developed at the Open Group is the FACE ecosystem, and it is a success story in many ways. The strategy model for forming the FACE consortium started a shift in paradigm and the criteria that we use at the Open Group to evaluate potential business opportunities or bring new standards development activities under the Open Group umbrella. The FACE consortium founding members were a combination of government customers, their suppliers, basically the entire supply chain for avionics software, who worked together to develop a new standard for a reference architecture along with the corresponding business model, which included technical and procurement guidance and a certification program to enable customers to acquire and suppliers to provide certified FACE products. The FACE ecosystem has really changed the way that the U.S. government armed forces do business to procure and provide avionics software. And it's nice to see that it has been that much of a game changer. We did start with a very complex business problem. Cost, complexity, and delivery risk. There was an unaffordable trend in providing software capability to both commercial applications and to military applications. When we looked at this next military vehicle being unaffordable because we had nothing that was reused, proprietary interfaces, a lot had to be rebuilt and re-executed every time a new platform came into being. But by looking at common core systems at the heart of a systems architecture, we could reuse and save a lot of money. We demonstrated that we didn't, but GE demonstrated that was possible with reusing software on one of their platforms. And we applied that principle to the FACE approach as well, giving us hope that the next military vehicle could in fact be affordable with reuse, interoperability, portability, etc. But that didn't mean there still weren't complex technical problems to solve, including the lack of practices to promote development of reusable software products. It wasn't a common practice until government agencies said that they don't have enough money to share and keep buying things over and over that are 80% common. So the FACE consortium members responded by developing a software standard that promotes development of portable components between different avionics architectures, and it's working quite well. This is a high-level picture of the FACE technical standard, which I'm sure many of you have seen. The FACE technical standard defines a software approach that tackles barriers to modularity, portability, and interoperability. It's a reference architecture with standardized interfaces, provides requirements for developing software components, and key interfaces link the 5 architectural segments that are shown here. So in addition to the technical architecture, business documentation emerged as well. And as the FACE consortium matured, the business guidance documents continually evolved to ensure they provided an integrated business and technical strategy to achieve competitive and affordable acquisition and sustainment over the system lifecycle of avionics software. And here we started out in the material solutions analysis phase with trade studies and analysis. We did a business guide. We looked at business scenarios. We looked at who the stakeholders were that cared about affordability, cared about portability, cared about safety, security, etc., and documented that in our business guide. And then for technology maturation and risk reduction phase, we looked at redefining the acquisition strategy. So a contract guidance document was written to ensure that there was consistency in how government agencies procured and software suppliers responded to procurements and RFPs. Then we got into the execution phase. Okay, I know how to contract for it. I know how to ask for it. I know how to respond. How do I build it? Where do I go? What do I do? So now we have guidance documents in here for software suppliers to follow in the execution phase for engineering, manufacturing, development, production, and deployment. And then for sustainment, operations, and support, we're still working that as we evolve. There will be further documentation coming out of the FACE consortium to support that. But it just shows how the ecosystem has evolved to support the growing need to change the way to do business. So the FACE Conformance Program is a key business process for the FACE ecosystem. It ensures that we can verify and certify conformance to the requirements that are defined in the FACE technical standard when products are built. It also satisfies the acceptance criteria for the fifth MOSA pillar. It also ensures that we can expedite integrating and we have interoperable FACE conformant components. On the business side, we instill trust in the FACE marketplace with sufficient verification rigor and conformance certification. You can't claim that you are meeting the requirements of the FACE technical standard unless you have a conformance certification certificate. Conformance means something. It does have that pedigree in the marketplace. Instead of saying, trust me, I've done it the right way, a conformance certificate and being listed in the FACE registry says this person did it the right way and I have evidence and I can see it. It also provides it reduces barriers to market adoption by having certification in the mix. Okay, and the FACE consortium is not sitting still. They're not resting on their laurels after they launched their certification program. They are continuing with the execution and sustainment guidance documents for software developers and system integrators. They do demonstrate that interoperability is achievable with integration workshops, BITS events. There will be one going on this week at their face-to-face meeting out at RTI in California. And they do showcase FACE conformance software products at various expos as well. They're looking at implementing accredited course and training programs to further educate software providers and end users, and expanding into adjacent technology markets through reuse of the FACE architecture. Ground vehicles is one area that they are expanding. We're also moving into international alignment with the Pyramid program in the UK. The FACE Consortium expanded for international participation about 2 years ago, and it includes, in addition to the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The UK MOD in particular found value in aligning their Pyramid program for standardizing avionics and mission systems components with the FACE technical standard for avionics software. It's a very important conclusion that they've determined that there's compatibility. Both standards are complementary and can deliver a modular, upgradable, component-based architecture, which is key if there are going to be any future joint programs for avionics software and mission component development, or mission system component development. And here, this slide just quickly demonstrates that the FACE approach does address all 5 MOSA principles. We've established an enabling environment. We've employed a modular design. We have designated key interfaces. We are using open standards. We've leveraged over 60 existing standards that are part of the requirements defined in the FACE technical standard. And we do have a program for the capability to certify conformance to the standard. Okay, our next success story is the SOSA consortium. The SOSA consortium founders followed a very similar path. They had a similar business problem as well, and they initially incubated under the FACE consortium in 2015 to leverage lessons learned and subject matter expertise for successfully putting together principles, quality attributes, and governments to duplicate the success of the avionics software ecosystem for hardware and software modules of sensor systems. After the incubation period and getting their architecture principles and their architecture legs underneath them, they launched in 2017, and they have a collaborative approach to develop a unified technical open system architecture standard for radar, EOIR, SIGINT, electronic warfare, communications, and directed energy weapon systems. This approach supports business models to improve subsystem, system, platform affordability, reconfigurability, updatability, and hardware, software, firmware reuse. The beneficiaries of this are the government agencies, the Army, Navy, Air Force, industry, and academia will all benefit from shortened cycle times and enable them to counter emerging threats. One of the key tenets of the SOSA consortium is focusing on reuse of standards, leveraging existing open standards. They have several government initiatives and standards that they've looked at and adopted, including CMOS, Victory, MORA, and FROST coming out of the Army, HOST coming out of the Navy, OMSUCI Corps, and MBERF coming out of the Air Force, and TOA and Red Hawk coming out of the intelligence community. They are all applicable to the sensor applications and the sensor requirements that are emerging in the SOSA technical standards. Industry standards bodies have been leveraged as well. In addition to VITA, IEEE, SAE International, VITA for some of the PIC card definitions, SAE International for some of the electromechanical standardization techniques. The Open Group FACE Consortium FACE technical standard is being leveraged for real-time operating environment and transport services applications within the SOSA technical standard. So excited to see reused, don't reinvent, and it's putting them in a position to be very, very successful. So the SOSA taxonomy, system taxonomy, consists of SOSA elements, which are then further broken down into SOSA modules and a supporting infrastructure. The SOSA modules evolved from identifying functions performed within radar, EOIR, SIGINT, electronic warfare and communication systems, and they were aggregated into logical groups. The infrastructure is the structure upon which the SOSA modules are built or deployed, and the infrastructure enables many of the architecture principles and quality attributes to be achieved, which the logical modules can't meet on their own. The infrastructure is a down select of various technologies available from hardware, from runtime environments, and interaction types between SOSA elements. So the SOSA instance architecture, if we'll call it that, gives customers and suppliers the option to pick and choose which portion of the reference architecture they want to use. So not all systems have to incorporate every module. Processing may be done on a large sensor or off-board for a small sensor. And you don't have to implement all of the runtime environments, all of the hardware options. It gives you the ability to pick and choose what's fit for purpose. But we can also leverage commonality between sensor types, and they tell me as much as the physics will permit. And they're doing some great things in that area. I'll tell you a little bit about the SOSA business strategy. Their goals in the business working group, SOSA business working group, is to guide the implementation of contracting, conformance approval practices, establish a registry and repository, and ensure that by doing that, they're still holding to the SOSA mission and vision. They write and develop the business policies and procedures for evolving and maintaining the marketplace of sensor components that are going to be conformant to the SOSA technical standard. and ensure that they can be integrated into multiple sensor systems. And they have a very strong outreach program. They communicate to DoD and industry leaders and promote the use of the SOSA approach in development, procurement, and upgrades of future SOSA systems. SOSA conformance, conformable items from the taxonomy that I showed you earlier. This is an example of executing the business strategy for conformance components. And then a little bit more about SOSA procurements and examples of how they've successfully executed their business strategy. With outreach, with promotion, they have achieved several examples of uptake and adoption. In this example, it's with the U.S. Army. The bottom line here is that there are $228 million worth of Army programs of record which have specific SOSA requirements called out. So their business strategy of outreach and other examples is working and enabling them to set up for success once their conformance program is launched. And again, an example of where 5 principles of MOSA, the SOSA approach and ecosystem also addresses all 5 principles. I'll move on to the Open Process Automation Forum, and I think I'm running out of time here if we're going to allow some time for Q&A, so I'll just go through this real quick. They have an enabling environment. They've followed along as the same path as the FACE and SOSA Consortia. Their focus was on distributed control systems across multiple industries, including oil and gas, petrochemical, pharmaceutical, pulp and paper. Their issue has been that they've had entirely proprietary, large, bulky systems that required a 2-week shutdown to upgrade after 30 years of operation with significant vendor lock-in. They had no ability to insert best-of-class equipment from multiple suppliers. It was a high cost to operate, inadequate security, and it was a huge business problem for them. But they actually came to a FACE consortium meeting in a presentation in 2015 and realized that our ecosystem that was emerging was the exact example of what they perceived was needed for their solution. Create a standard of standards for DCS systems, ensure interoperability, portability, security, and come up with a business strategy to enable them to secure certified distributed control system components, not buy a whole system 30 years later when it needed to be replaced. So this is just a little showcase of the work products that they've produced and published. Their certification program was launched in 2024, and they've actually built a test bed that aligns to the requirements in the Open Process Automation System Standard, and it is operational in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I can't say it. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, built by ExxonMobil and demonstrated to many that open process automation in a distributed environment is achievable. And just 2 other examples are OSGU Forum, Open Footprint Forum. The bottom line here is that the underpinning of all of these ecosystem developments is based on enterprise architecture. I mentioned earlier that the Open Group has the TOGAF standard 10th edition and the architecture development methodology that we've put in place and really believe that the Open Group is the foundation of making standards work. In the case of the FACE Consortium, SOSA Consortium, and the Open Process Automation Forum, they've done their preliminary work by defining their business case scenarios and determining who their stakeholders are and developing quality attributes, the business attributes that the technical requirements needed to meet. They've developed a vision and mission for their architecture as well as for the business ecosystem. They've developed business procurement and conformance operation guides as part of their business architecture. They've developed a data architecture, data model, glossaries and roles as part of their information systems architecture, the technology architecture, the reference architectures and guidance documents for how to build things to that reference architecture so that requirements are met. Externally, operations and solutions, we've looked at procurement. Migration planning, we've looked at product development. Implementation governments, we look at certification. Internally, the open group standards process and shared data models are also used for architecture governance, development governance, and governance in how modules or UOCs interplay. And finally, for change management, we have PRCR processes in place, and we also have the open group standards process in place to ensure that work products evolve and are developed in a fair, neutral, technology neutral, vendor neutral environment. So this is really tiny print that you can all read at your leisure. Just summing up here, we do have a methodology for making standards work that harmonizes quite well with MOSA. And enterprise architecture is the foundation for making standards work. I've talked to you about how the FACE ecosystem has succeeded, the SOSA ecosystem has succeeded, and the open process automation system ecosystem has succeeded by looking at business objectives, looking at technology standards, and building a sustainable environment for that ecosystem to evolve and succeed. So that's what I have here. I'm going to switch now to questions, and I apologize for going a little bit over time, but it was a lot to unpack in a short period of time. So
That's great. No, thank you so much. This was fantastic. So if you have questions, I've got a few already in the control panel and via chat. So I'll begin fielding those to Judy. Go ahead and ask them. And I also have some from registration. If you ask something there, I might have a hold of it. So, okay, to start out with, all right, let's see here. The government says a lot about architecture, specifically DODAF and MBSE, Model-Based Systems Engineering. What do FACE and SOSA communities do to align to new architecture concepts like UAF, United Architecture Framework, for the DoD?
So I can tell you in 2017 timeframe, we actually did a presentation that showed how the FACE consortium aligns very well with not only the TOGAF architecture development methodology, but what the DODAF and UAF constructs represent. So we have an enterprise architecture standing committees in both the FACE and SOSA consortium. And there's an enterprise architecture working group in OPAF. The Open Process Automation Forum does not need to align to DODAF, but they do utilize it significantly. So the architecture work products that are used to define the excuse me, I'm sorry here. I should have prepared for this question because I looked at the slide deck yesterday. But the DODAF outputs were used to represent the artifacts coming out of the TOGAF methodology. So the AV2, the services views, the capability views, the operational views for each of the business processes and each of the technology processes in both of the consortia heavily leveraged DODAF for that type of documentation. And you will find a lot of that available in the FACE consortium, a lot of that available in the SOSA consortium. I will check with the forum directors for exactly where those artifacts are stored. UAF is the alignment of the DODAF and MODAF, Ministry of Defense architecture framework into the unified architecture framework. So there's alignment with some of the DODAF existing artifacts that map quite nicely to UAF. If there are new features, new views that need to be represented that are defined in UAF that are not in DODAF from the time that it was done in 2017 by the FACE Consortium, and then more recently for the SOSA Consortium. That's something that the enterprise architecture standing committees it would be in their purview to see how much additional effort would need to be made in order to bring that up to date.
Great, thank you. I find it so impressive to be keeping track of all of the acronyms, and like, you're incredible. And
Well,
all of you who
thank you.
understand more about this than I do, which is very little because this is not my area of expertise particularly. So I'm impressed. But anyhow, Q2, here we are. There are some other standards like OMS and WOSA that the Air Force has sponsored. If I'm a product vendor, how can I build a product that is interoperable with FACE and SOSA and still usable with these other standards?
So the SOSA community and the FACE community are doing, in my opinion, an outstanding job of looking at the other complementary standards that are out there and looking at ways to best align with them. Because the last thing that you want to do when you have a product is have a requirement to conform to two standards with diverging requirements. So you have to pick one or pick the other. And that doesn't put the supplier in a good situation. That doesn't put the customer in a good situation. But I know the SOSA consortium is looking at least at harmonization of OMS and WOSA when they are defining requirements that are in the SOSA standard. There was a FACE and OMS alignment activity several years ago that showed where those standards are complementary. As long as we document where they're complementary and work either through liaison relationships or harmonization relationships with the open group does provide, we can talk to each other and agree to disagree where they're not ever going to merge, but try to get them to converge as much as possible so that we don't put competing standards out there in the marketplace.
Okay, great. All right, next question. Do you have any kind of plug fest or live coding events that I can get my new developers up to speed? Do you offer anything like that?
Maybe. So I know that there's a BITS event going on right now, probably tomorrow afternoon, at the FACE Consortium face-to-face meeting out in California. What that entails is a tool called BALSA, the basic ADS. I'm losing my train. I should know what this is too. I'm sorry. Can't do it off the top of my head. But BALSA is a simplified rendering of the FACE reference architecture that is basically your operational backbone that exercises all of the interfaces, the key interfaces that are defined in the FACE technical standard. And it gives you a bare minimum baseline of what you can test your software in to see whether it meets the APIs, how easy it is to integrate it in that simplified test environment. That is available to FACE Consortium members. There's plans for it to be released distro A for public release. I don't believe that has happened yet, but that would be the place to test things on the FACE Consortium side. And the Air Force has in the past offered plug fests to SOSA members from time to time. I will keep tabs on that, and if any do become available, they're usually well publicized in either the FACE or SOSA Consortium newsletters for when they're going to take place.
All right, great. All right, another question. There are a lot of commercial drone and UAS efforts that use commercial interfaces, and some even leverage the legacy TOGA, Tactical Open Government Architecture, for components. There is also an effort for universal control. How do open group standards play in this rapidly changing environment?
That's a good question. The I would say open the lines of communication so that as the emerging technologies evolve, as new requirements come out, as new capabilities that do similar operational functions emerge, it makes sense to get folks at the table to discuss where the overlap is. And again, reuse, don't reinvent. If there's a standard out there that's fit for purpose, reuse it. If there are gaps that need to be defined, get a seat at the table and come and be part of the solution and evolve it so that it's a broader scope than just avionics.
Okay, great. All right, here's one, and it kind of has a two-part. So the first part is this. Does MOSA/SOSA now have an approved red-black open VPX backplane design for US DoD use as a template? And if so, where can it be found? And if not, do you have a sense of when that might be available?
Okay, so if it is approved, I don't know the answer to that, but anything to do with VPX backplane would that those definitions would be emerging in the SOSA technical standard, either one of the snapshots or one of the official editions that's being published already. And I would direct you to the Open Group Library. If you go to www.opengroup.org/library or even just .org. That will take you to the Open Group corporate website, and you can search the library for SOSA documentation. If it's blessed and official, it would be published as part of the standard. If it's emerging, it would be coming in one of the future snapshots that's being developed. And that's if it doesn't exist, I'll find out. I'll take an action to find out if that exists for sure. But in the meantime, I would urge you to go to the library and download the SOSA technical standard and find out all things about VPX and what their plans are for the future.
Okay, great. And then the second part of that was, is red-black power defined for that question? I guess, will there be kind of further definition of red-black power?
I'm going to say yes, but I'm not the technical expert. I can direct you to the SOSA Consortium chair, vice chair, technology or technical work group leads who would have more information about that.
So best guess, but that's great. All right, thank you. And then, okay, here's another question. What real-world systems have deployed FACE and SOSA on fielded systems? And are there success stories other than big primes actually building FACE and SOSA components?
That's a good question as well. The proof in the pudding comes out of our TIM papers, technical information meetings that we have once a year. And there we have a list of real world examples where FACE software has been integrated into existing systems or integrated into existing products. And again, that would be the Open Group FACE Consortium corporate website does have a list of all of the TIM papers that are published, does have a list of all of the procurements that were released that include FACE requirements. The SOSA corporate website also has a list of procurements that include SOSA requirements. As far as whether those RFPs have been realized and the software and hardware is actually fielded out in the as systems or software out in the real world, I don't know the answer to that off of my head, but there are several people in the consortium who were affiliated with the Army, Navy, Air Force, and those programs of record who would know more.
All right, great. Well, you ended that perfectly. We're right at time. So thank you so much for all of your insight and just not only kind of the history and legacy, but also sort of some forward-looking information that's been really fantastic. For everyone who's joined, thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your day. We look forward to seeing you in August at the MOSA Industry and Government Summit. Will be held in National Harbor and staying engaged with you until then. So feel free to reach out to us at any time, and we'll post a recording of this session on nta.org under our webinars page. So you can continue to revisit it and share. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.